Rabbi Wildes, come on up here, Rabbi. See you. Good to see you. I mean it. I mean everything. Let's move these out of the way so we can see us. So I am reading your. Oh, is this on now? I don't even need this. Okay, good. So I'm reading and loving your book, loving it. Now the reason I didn't finish it, you can hear me, right? So it's the coolest thing because I love these kind of books. It's not just self-help, but it's actually like a take-action book where every day for 40 days from Elul, because by the way, Jews love a good ramp up to something, right? Like God forbid could have just been Tisha B'Av. No, we had to go back 9 days. It's like, you know what, let's go back 3 weeks because 9 days isn't even enough. We do with sadness what Goyim do with joy. They start Christmas in September, okay? They have the ramp up for the happy stuff. But anyway, my point is there is a ramp up and it begins, when is Rosh Chodesh? Elul, one is?
August 8th.
August 8th. And there is, from that moment, there is 40 days between that and Yom Kippur. And I love that every single day you just read it and you do something to ramp up. Because like you say in your first chapter, it's all about preparation. People don't realize, like so many people ask me this question. I'm going to let you talk in an hour.
That's fine. I'm good. I'm enjoying myself.
He's good, huh?
No, I'm all right. Somebody,
Unbelievable. By the way, can we just want to also recognize Elon's parents are here.
Oh, that's so nice. Sid and Lynn, where are they? How are you, folks? Good to see you. I don't leave home without them.
They have a lot of knockouts.
Thank you.
They still find you funny.
No, they never found me funny. Every time I bring them to a show, it's just revenge. It's like, I told you I was funny. No, they've been nothing but supportive, and it's not good. That's why there's a reason I'm at the level I'm at. If my parents supported me a little less, I would have fought harder to prove myself. But they were so supportive that I'm sort of a mid-level success. And let that be a lesson to all of you future parents. Put your kids down every now and then. Say, you're no good.
I think that was
You're not funny.
day
Is that
22.
day 32?
Yeah, I think it was in there.
But the point is that I love that this is a call to action of every day. So prep work. People always say to me, do you just get up there and just go? It's like, no, it takes so much preparation. Not that, but like an hour. If I was doing an hour show, if I was headlining somewhere, you have to prepare, obviously for minutes, hours, and days, but years before you get to a level doing it an hour. So the fact that there is this ramp up, that we do have 40 days to prepare, that you don't want to just show up on Rosh Hashanah and be like, okay, let's do this. Right. Tell us more about that, because I was fascinated by that.
So thank you for asking. Yeah. That was an excellent commercial for the book. Really appreciate it. So I actually think that's what we do. Most of us in the Jewish community, we just sort of show up on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and maybe we have a great experience, maybe we don't. But the idea is to really prepare. Rav Soloveitchik, who you've heard of, you went to one of his
He
schools.
won second best pecs, I understand.
All right, I'm just going to...
You won't even...
I'm just going to ignore you said that. All right, whatever. So, Rav Soloveitchik has a famous line where he says, Ein kedusha b'li hachana. There can be no holiness without preparation.
Right.
And the idea of just sort of showing up is a very sort of antithetical concept to Judaism. And I'd probably, if we went around the room now and we asked everyone what was the most successful moment in your life, I can't imagine that it just happened.
Right.
It had to be something that what you just did here was brilliant. I know you.
It was all right.
It was good.
All right.
It was excellent. I mean, that takes time.
Yeah,
it took a long time. So that's what the 40 days is for. And I didn't make this up. 40 is a very, very important number. In Judaism, Rabbi Ezra just spoke about it this past Shabbat, of how significant the number 40. Anybody know 40? Why is it significant, 40?
There's so many 40s. 40 days, the 40 years, there's so many 40s.
40 years in the wilderness.
Yeah.
But they all have one thing in common, all the 40s. They're all about transformation. In fact, in a mikvah, I have to be careful what I'm going to say. I'm looking at you right now and I'm saying a mikvah. But a mikvah has, which is a ritual bath, has 40 seyot, which is 40 Talmudic measurements, because a mikvah is also about spiritual transformation.
Right.
And when Moses saw the Jewish people sitting with the golden calf, and he broke the tablets, he went down, prayed on their behalf for how long? 40 days, God calls him back up, gives him a second chance, spends how many more days on Sinai? 40 days until he comes down with the second tablets on what day? Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
My jacket has to come with me. Yom Kippur, ladies and gentlemen, became Yom Kippur because that was the day that God gave us a second chance. And if we get this second chance, we don't want to blow it. We want to prepare.
But then the big question is, like, there's also a prep for Shabbos. It's almost like they say that the entire week is just preparation for Shabbos, which is cool. But I know how to prepare for Shabbos. You know, you shop for food, you cook, you this, you get ready, you dry clean your suit, whatever. How do you prepare mentally, emotionally, spiritually for Yom Kippur? What are the tools? What are the steps? Because that's a great thing. Okay, so I have 40 days to prepare, but what am I doing? And I know that's the answer is in the book, but if you could just give like basic steps to what we have to do and go through to get ready so we just don't show up blindly.
Yeah, so I think first of all, you know, Judaism is one of the only civilizations that considers the study of its religion an ennobling task. Meaning, we don't just study in Judaism to know what to do.
Right.
We're studying because the study of the wisdom of God, we believe, elevates us.
Right.
So I would start with that. August 8th is Rosh Chodesh. Everybody, think of one new thing you're going to learn, you're going to study consistently. You can start with this. This is just a starting point. But if you learn something new every day of your Jewish tradition, whether you are more intellectually oriented in terms of philosophy or more mystically inclined in terms of Kabbalah, I think studying. MJ happens to have some really excellent classes on Wednesday nights throughout the summer. We have can I do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's my organization. I can do it.
By the way, aren't they all members of MJE?
We don't really have membership. We have, we ask them
Never
for money.
heard of such a thing. A Jewish organization with no membership?
So studying is
By the way, this is a true story. Yesterday, Saturday, I was at Ira Rennard's house, I don't want to brag, in the Hamptons. He's got a crazy, and I said, you know what I love about this little shul? Because it's just like 12 guys, a few women, and it's in his house. He built the shul in his house. I said, I love that with this small minyan, there's so much ruach. There's so much great energy in here. And I go, my only issue is the membership dues. He cracked up, by the way, at that. He went nuts because it's his house and there are no dues. Anyway, the point is, aren't you all actively involved in MJE? If not, get involved. He made 344 shidduchim.
Not personally.
Not personally, but being is part of the experience. So wait, we're talking. This is a crew of people that aren't actively involved in MJE.
No, there are a lot of people actively involved, thankfully here, and some less actively involved.
So now we're trying to sell them on. So what kind of
classes?
Classes?
And I would also encourage Shabbat, because another way of preparing for the high holidays, you got this marathon prayer day. If you're not in the prayer mode, it's very hard to switch on that gear from 0 to 60. Mm-hmm. So you got a couple of weeks, as you said, to veer up to Yom Kippur. Maybe start coming a little more regularly on Shabbos. If you already do that, maybe come a little earlier, get the whole sense of the service. So prayer, study, and, as I emphasize a lot in the book, take care of another person. I have a great chapter on this. Maybe we'll talk about that story later on.
Which one?
It's a very serious story.
We'll get to that.
It's about the Holocaust.
No, we're still in the fun part of the show. And you mentioned Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And that's what I love also, the real world, the practical applications, and real people. Like to know that Tom Brady preps for the Super Bowl in a way that's insane.
He's crazy.
You just think he's talented, and he just shows up.
After winning 6 Super Bowls, this is what he did to prepare for the 7th. Okay? He sent scouting tips and films to his players all hours of the night. He followed this crazy diet, sleep, workout routine, from which he never veered. He used to meet one of his guys on the court 5:30. If he showed up at 5:45, he'd call. He'd say, "Good afternoon," like, "Where you been?" And even though the last football Super Bowl was played in his own hometown, in Tampa Bay, his family moved out for 2 weeks because they didn't want to be near him. He's a Meshuggah for those 2 weeks. And
I did that for tonight. I kicked my family out. I got a big event.
I set you up. It was perfect.
Get out.
Did you hear my quote from Thomas Edison?
Yes, I did.
Genius is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. And we just don't do this for the most important part of our lives. We do this for our professional lives. We prepare for meetings. We prepare. Right. And then when it comes to the most important people in our lives and it comes to the most important moments in our lives, we just wing it.
Right. All right, let's get to some of these. I did not write these questions, by the way.
Can we thank Alan Zeitlin,
Thank
who
you,
did
Alan.
write
He's
these
such
questions.
a mensch.
Alan Zeitlin in
Thank
the back.
you, Alan.
What? I also want to thank Alec Goldstein. He had to run out, but he's from Kodesh Press, who actually published the book.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it really is a great read. Okay, smart Jewish lawyers tell you never to put anything in writing, right? Well, Abraham Lincoln must have had a smart Jewish lawyer because you write in the book about how when he got angry, he drafted letters but never sent them. So it's just the exercise of, oh, son of a,
Right.
not sending them out.
And he made sure not to send them out by writing on the bottom of the letters, never signed, never sent. So that would be the modern day equivalent of when you get really angry at someone and you're about to send that text and that email.
Right.
And you don't. You wait. Because we say and do the stupidest things in the world when we're angry.
True.
And that's a
By the way, my dad has a famous saying called Halzachain, right? Which is Yiddish for just take a moment. Right. What's the exact translation? Hold back a little bit. I know you're angry right now, but Halzachain. Take a moment. Maybe write it out to yourself to get it out of your system, but don't send it.
Right. It's.
What does that have to do with prepping for?
We want to be a better person.
Oh,
and
this is
you
just
can't,
growth. It's just personal
It's all
growth.
personal growth.
Right.
The first 20 of the 40, basically, a lot of great Maimonidean teachings from his work on Deot, which is personality traits. Because to stand before God and get atonement for our sins between ourselves and God and negating our fellow human being is not a Jewish thing.
Yeah.
We have to have that balance. And anger has destroyed a lot of lives. And I just want to share one last thing on anger, which is very important because what inspires me when I think about the times, and Ezra can attest to this, and Jill can definitely attest to this, when I get very, very upset, I think about two great rabbis. One was the Chafetz Chaim, and the other one was Rav Nachman of Breslov. Now, if anyone ever heard of these great rabbis, the last thing you would think, I'm just going to hold this, the last thing you would think about the Chafetz Chaim or Rav Nachman of Breslov is that they had temper or anger issues. And they did. There are stories of Talmidim, of students of the Chafetz Chaim, who would go into his base medrash late at night, his study hall, and see the Chafetz Chaim prostrated on the floor with an Aron Kodesh open up and just calling out to God, help me control my temper, help me control my temper. We think that these spiritual giants were born this way. They were not. They disciplined themselves. They worked on themselves. Rav Nachman of Breslov, what a holy, peace-loving Jew, right? He had anger issues. He writes this. And I also wrote about in another book about, a little different, but Ben Carson. Mm-hmm. Ben Carson, who's an extraordinarily brilliant surgeon who performed miraculous surgery separating Siamese twins, had terrible, terrible anger issues as a kid.
For the record, that's in this book.
Is it? I put Ben Carson in it?
Yeah.
Okay, so Ben Carson. It's an amazing story. When he was 14, he lunged at his best friend with a pocket knife, and he said had it not hit the buckle, he would have severely injured his friend, had gone to jail, and that would have set him instead, and I don't recommend this, he said he locked himself in the bathroom with a Bible.
Yeah.
This is
not the best place.
No, but and for 3 hours, and he came out and he said he's going to control this, and he's a brilliant guy, and he got a full scholarship to Yale, and the rest was history. So it's all a question of our attitude, and by the way, the Rambam also says that there are things we should get angry over. Right? He said you shouldn't be like a mace, like a dead person, God forbid, that nothing bothers you. But the idea is that
I'm livid at your hair.
Well, let me ask you this: you have, just to get off the topic, you have children, Bli Ayin Hara,
I
beautiful.
want to talk about your hair.
But,
how do you use mousse?
A little gel, just a little tad, not too much. It gets greasy.
And then the blonde? How does that?
I don't know. That's just the thing. I don't know. I don't know. It's.
I have a crush on your husband. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't know what it is.
Okay, this is getting weird.
Else.
But what do you do when your kids upset you in terms of
I have
anger?
children? Oh, what? when they get, I try
Do you
not
count to 10? I mean,
No. If anything, first of all, I physically beat them. No, if anything, I'm very proud of the fact that I've never hit my kids. It's like a thing because you do get to a point of like, oh, it'd be fun to just swat them or whatever. But anyway, I'm very careful with when disciplining them, thinking about like what's gonna help the situation. Losing my temper and like, oh, dad's a lunatic, or just halzachaining and taking a moment and going, kids, this is, and just explaining it to them without going nuts. Have I lost my temper? Of course I have. Everybody does. But I'm so careful with that. And if you ask my kids, they'd be like, no, Dad doesn't have a temper because I make it a thing. You have, and again, this
you
is
have
all
to
about,
make it a thing.
You have to work on yourself.
You have to work on it,
Yeah.
but you're training your kids to discipline themselves.
Yes. Now we have another question and then we're going to take questions, by the way. So prepare your questions. Thank you, Mom. Isn't that nice? That's true. By the way, married 27 years. I'm getting divorced on Tuesday. Thank you.
We can take care of that. We're a full service operation here at
It is? Oh, good. You do.
You mentioned the
Like brisses and funerals, marriage and divorce.
You mentioned the 344 marriages. You said nothing
That's
about
incredible. I host a show every Saturday night called The Bachor. Anybody watch it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where I try to set people, I think I have like 2 success stories. It's amazing what you're doing. And I know a lot of you are judging about where my ring is. I don't wear a ring because if I advertise that I'm married, how am I ever going to find my bashert? I know she's out there somewhere. No, the ocean took my ring, and I thought it was a sign from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I called my lawyers. Anyway, the ocean, isn't that crazy? A wave just took it. It's upsetting. Anyway, it's all good. I'm happily married. You know who isn't? My wife. She, folks.
I wanted to...
Boom.
Yeah.
Speaking of drums, I'm a drummer. So chapter 4, you talk about making music with what remains.
Yes.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah, there's a beautiful story I want to share about the great violinist Yitzhak Perlman.
Love him.
And Yitzhak Perlman, by the way, contracted polio at the age of 4, and was I'm sure many of you have seen him in concert, but this is why the story is so powerful. So anyway, he gets on stage. He's playing with the New York Philharmonic, and as he's tuning his violin, spring breaks. And instead of calling for someone to bring him either a new violin or another string, he just continues to play the whole concerto on 3 strings. The violin has 4, which is very, very... I don't play the violin, but that cannot be simple. Mm-hmm. When he was done, he got this, deafening, round of applause. And when they asked him to speak about what happened, he famously remarked, and this is what I called my entry, day 4, our task is to make music with what remains. And I found that so powerful because the truth is, whether for Yitzhak Perlman who had polio or any one of us, each of us has some serious challenge. Whether it's in our personal lives, it's our professional lives, everybody's got something. And we are all called upon to make music in this world with what remains. And that is not a coincidence. I quote the Ramchal, the great Rabbeinu Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. He said that every person's life predicament is their challenge for a reason. See, each of us was brought into this world for a purpose. Each of us was given a different soul that needs to be cultivated and developed in a different way. And that cultivation happens through good things and through challenging things. So if we're going through a challenging moment, it's for some reason, and by the way, I wouldn't share this with somebody, going through a challenging moment necessarily, but it's happening for a reason. We're supposed to grow from it. We're supposed to figure out how to make beautiful music without one string. And I find that very, very powerful teaching. One other thing, if I can throw in, I heard this many years ago from my friend Rabbi Eitan Meir, who was the assistant rabbi here at the Jewish Center. He said if you take the word Elul, which is the month we're about to begin, the month you'll hopefully start the book, August 8th, and Aleph, Lamed, Vav, Lamed, spell it backwards, what do you get? Lu, Lamed, Aleph, Lamed, Vav, which spells Lu, Le, which means if not, no. If only not. And Rabbi Meir suggested that much of our lives we live this Lule type of experience. If only I wasn't this, if only my parents weren't this, if only I was stronger, if only I was smarter, if only I had gotten that promotion, if only, if only, if only. And we're waiting for that next if to happen in our lives to find happiness. And then once a year, Elul comes and says, you've got it just backwards. It's Elul. This is exactly what you need to accomplish your purpose. And that's why we don't look at our friends and our colleagues and see how they're doing and wonder, why can't I be doing as well? Because that's not your goal. Right. That's not why God put you here. He put you here for a different purpose and gave you what you need to accomplish that task and some challenges to help us develop ourselves in the unique way we need to. So that's, I think, just making music with what remains a very, very important teaching.
Love that. So speaking of things that are important, a smile, like your whole, what I was reading in that chapter, that you can force, if you're clinically depressed, you can't just smile and everything will be okay. But you can force your emotions by changing your body, your posture, by smiling. A smile sets out endorphins, everything, and tells your brain, oh, this guy's happy. We better be happy. He's smiling. Why is he smiling? Everything's going terrible. But if you smile, then that literally changes your entire demeanor. So tell us about that.
So you just said it beautifully.
Yeah.
I'm done.
No, but really, isn't that such a
is,
fascinating thing?
I'm going to try it over here.
That you could you could force yourself to be happy.
Force yourself. It's basically all of Judaism in a nutshell. Because if I were to ask everybody here, what is more important in Judaism, to believe in certain things or to act in a certain way? Belief or action? Which is it? Okay. Now, belief is very important. Please don't misunderstand me. But the mitzvot of the Torah, which is what we're bidden to do, there are some beliefs among them, but they're primarily actions.
Right.
And there's a very famous line from an anonymous author of the Sefer HaChinuch that said, "Acharei pulot nimshechu levavot." After our actions, follow our heart. And we often consider ourselves hypocrites if we do something that we don't feel motivated to do. If we don't believe in something, we just do it anyway. No, Judaism wants us to act, and therefore we will become. The great French philosopher Descartes famously said, I think, therefore I am. And I would say, for a Jew, it's I act, therefore I am. As Tuvia Book, our tour guide, used to say, to do, you can use this. To do is, no. To Jew is to do, he used to
that's
say.
good, yeah.
So if you want to become something, if you want to feel something, if you want to even think something, it's the action. I used to be, not critical, but I used to see these Chabad guys in the street, and I consider myself in the same business as Chabad, and they're incredible. What are they doing, rapping, going over to some stranger in the street? Would you like to put on tefillin? You're like Shabbos, like what? Because they very much believe, and this is taught again and again in their great text of the Tanya, Wednesday nights, 9:15. Anybody wants to join? Little plug. That the feeling and the connection to God will come from actions. And so that's another thing I encourage everyone. It's another thing to take on is what's a new mitzvah that you can start performing? What's a new activity? Even if you don't feel so emotionally motivated to engage in that activity, there are 248 positive activities that we can choose from to get ourselves closer to Hashem, 365 ways to further, God forbid, distance ourselves from God, opportunities, actions.
Right.
And that's the smile. That's the smile.
Yeah. You mentioned Descartes. I'm literally working on a bit about how if Descartes was Jewish, it would be, I kvetch, therefore I am. I realized the other day, we even complain about good things. Like, it's literally in this week's Parsha, with the man, it's raining food. It's raining food, and the Jews were like sending it back. They were like, I said medium rare. Like they... No, the Jews were upset that it tasted like anything you wanted it, but it didn't look like it. I want to see grill marks. I want to...
Can I ask you a question?
Please explain
Jackie, Jackie Mason.
The legend, Olav Shalom, may he rest, the greatest of all time.
So
He's the greatest of all time, not being crazy.
So I introduced him to my son, to some videos of him. I used to listen to him in Grow Singers and the Borscht Bell. Do you think he got some of his material, like the line you just used, okay? It says it again and again in the Torah that the Jews were complaining. You had to bring us out here to kill us. We could have died back in Egypt.
the best
Did he
line.
get that? Isn't that like a Jackie Mason line? It's a pasuk in the Torah.
It's a pasuk in the Torah, and it defines Jewish humor, that one pasuk. Right. That's sarcasm, it's biting, it's criticism. That one pasuk is unbelievable.
That it was actually said by our ancestors.
Said, you had to take us out.
We could have died back then.
We could have died in Egypt.
Right. Okay,
Why
I just want to get
die?
that. I needed to ask an authentic, official comedian.
No. Obviously, he was learned and studied, and that was my one disappointment in Jackie Mason, that he, most brilliant, like top 5 of all time, like with Pryor and Carlin, whatever, Cosby. But anyway, you can't even say that without doing this. Anyway, he never went deep. I have jokes about a schach and a sukkah that I could do. Like, he never went deep, and I would have loved to have heard his angle on our rituals and customs. Can I give you a little Jackie before we...
Yeah, please.
All right, so I used to do bits about him. This is a little tribute. This is... so Mel Gibson, Yamach Shamo, made this movie about, the guy. Are we allowed to say it? Is it a shul here?
He was Jewish.
Right, he was a rabbi. And that's my whole point. Jesus was a rabbi, and they hired a non-Jewish actor to play the part. And there's so many great Jewish actors. Could have been Jesus. And then I do Jackie Mason as to tell you the truth, it makes me nauseous to take a place in my position as to stand up here and die for your sins. I got a better idea. Why don't you die for my sins? I'll make you a deal. You die for my sins, I'll die for your sins, but you go first. Thank you. There you have it. Jackie's the best.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, and now we get serious. We're shifting gears.
Oh, God.
So this, they want me to talk about, but let's not go that dark. But I had an anti-Semitic event, my walking home from Shabbat dinner in my neighborhood in L.A. You could Google it. It's not about me tonight. But I wrote a story about it. I was compelled to write because I was so angry that I wanted to write, and it was more about making the case for Israel, because it was during the Gaza conflict of 2004. And it was more about, I wanted to not tell my little experience. I got yelled at and whatever, and my kids were freaked out by this car. You could just read it. But I wanted to make the case for Israel. And that's how I took this, really crazy moment of hatred just towards us going, with these 4 Middle Eastern guys yelling at my little kids, and me, I hope your children die just like you're killing children in Gaza. And I took this and just wanted to bring light out of darkness. So I wrote this whole piece on my little case for Israel. Because my whole, a lot of the stand-up I do, my whole point in stand-up is to have some meaning and also education behind the jokes, because jokes are just jokes, but if you could say something behind the jokes. Like, I was so proud on the Tonight Show, I did my Hamas hummus bit before anyone else did it, and the line in there is, I don't understand how people could elect an evil terrorist group. They must have thought they were voting for hummus, because there's no... Anyway, the bit goes on. You can Google that too. But my point is a long question to get to the point. But my point is, again, you take a dark moment and you make something good out of it, which is... And this went viral. It was shared. 1 million people read this article. And it made all these points about Israel. Why are they so mad? Thank you. But it's like, why are they so mad at us? They use words like apartheid. These are all just lies and genocide and all that. By the way, one thing Jews are bad at, ethnic cleansing. We are terrible at it. And you would think we'd learned a thing or two after being ethnically cleansed from the entire Middle East and Europe. You'd think we'd pick up a thing or two. But turns out we're terrible at it. We don't do it. We've never done it. But the word on the street is they're ethnically cleansing. So again, not to make this about me, but that was an important thing for me to take that moment. So I want to talk about what your friend's son, because I watched him, I read about him. Joseph Borgen was attacked by a group of 10 people in Times Square. And first of all, do you ever think this could happen in New York, where you literally have to worry about getting beaten up for wearing a yarmulke in 2021? Second of all, how does that story and my anti-Semitic incident and his, how does that translate into what we should be doing to prepare for the big high holidays?
So I'm not surprised, unfortunately. I'm from a really nice neighborhood in Forest Hills, Queens, and I got mugged, not because of money issues, but because of the kippah. Oh. And that was part of something I grew up with. People used to yell all sorts of epithets. My dad, he should live and be well to this day, cringes often. He grew up in the United States because our parents' generation would never walk around with a yarmulke. It was just unheard of. We're living in such interesting times because on one hand we can feel such pride to be Jewish and walk with our Magen Davids and our yarmulkes. At the same time, I was walking around with my tripod that I do my little Parsha videos with because I felt that would be a good weapon of choice to defend myself for wearing a yarmulke. And this first time I have 3 boys, and my wife and I, Jill and I, were like, maybe they shouldn't wear a yarmulke in New York anymore. No. And I had this whole fight with Jill when I went to France. I have cousins who live in Paris, and I didn't want to take my yarmulke off. I said, fine, I'm not going to. My brother got beaten up in France when he went after college. I mean, he beat the other guys up. He knows how to take care of himself, but he was attacked by 3 people years ago. And when I said to my sons, when we were discussing this, one of my kids said, well, I don't know, if we were black or Asian, what would we do? We'd still be black or Asian.
Right.
We're Jewish, and Jews wear yarmulkes.
Right.
And I was very proud, and we just got to keep wearing the yarmulke. Right. We have to defend ourselves. And when I say defend ourselves, I mean physically, and we have to defend ourselves in terms of articulating Israel's case. Mm-hmm. And just because people keep saying the same thing again and again does not make it true. And I'm not trying to make an analogy, but Hitler told the world that if you repeat a lie often enough, it will become true. I listened to an interview last week with Roger Waters, and I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan. It's very hard for me to listen to their music now, but he's brainwashed. And I'd love to have a conversation with him. I'd love to talk to him because he's unaware of some of the basic facts. And I'm not saying it's simple. Okay, I'm not on the other extreme that says Israel's always in the right, Israel never does anything wrong. It's an extremely complicated situation. But what I like to share with my students is that given the complexity of the Middle East conflict, Israel is doing an extraordinary job morally. I don't just mean, strategically, militarily. Morally, Israel, the IDF, is one of the most moral and ethical forces on the planet.
Absolutely.
And we have to continue to study. Please, everyone, besides reading this is a very small book. Get Michael Oren's 6 Days of War. It'll take you a couple of weeks to read.
Yes.
It is worth the read.
And Noah Tishby's new book, Israel.
And,
really good.
And if you want to just get, Mitchell Bard wrote a book called Myths and Facts for AIPAC years ago. It's a quick read. It'll take you 2 hours to read it. It'll give you basic understanding of the situation so you can have a rational conversation and defend Israel properly. Also, Dershowitz wrote 2 excellent books.
And get involved with organizations like Stand With Us. That
Stand With Us is amazing.
Incredible info. God bless you. Okay, that sneeze, and we're all going to leave. Okay. We are...
She sneezed into her mask, I think.
We are sadly in a cancel culture society. On page 70, you write a chapter called Play the Ball, Not the Person. So, are you giving Dream Team defensive instructions from Coach, what is that, Popovich?
Alan wrote that one.
That's Alan's joke. Alan, it didn't work. No, but really, what is, because cancel culture to me, it's infuriating also. And because all of Judaism is about tshuva. The whole point of Judaism is giving a person a chance to redeem themselves, to repent, to reflect, and to grow and change. Cancel culture says, oh, you did this one thing? You're done.
Yeah, so there's nothing more distant from Jewish philosophy than that.
Right.
You open up the Talmud, it's filled with differing opinions of people who respected each other.
Right.
And we have to get back to a time, and I'm not that old, but I do remember I worked for my senator years ago, Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan. He was a liberal Democrat, and I saw him with real relationships with conservative Republicans, with respect on both sides. And in the Gemara, in the Talmud, you have Hillel and Shammai. They're always arguing. It never says Hillel is arguing with Shammai. It always says Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai. Right. The academy. They were able to limit their discussion and disagreements to the argument. They played the ball, not the man. When I was in high school, I played a little basketball, not as much as my friend who's here. And I remember some guy got around me, and my coach, it was in Michigan, in high school, was not a great team, so I was able to play a lot. And the guy got right around me, and he said, "Wildes, play the ball, not the man." He kept yelling at me, "Play the ball, not the man." He's like, the man's going to try to fake you out. He's going to go here, he's going to go there. The ball is what you got to keep your eyes on. So it's the same idea. When you're having an argument with someone, stop thinking about the other person and focus on the issue. Focus on the actual issue. If we can do that, the world will be a much better place. And by the way, we'll learn a lot more, because if we just surround ourselves with people with whom we agree, we're not going to grow. So that's a very, very important idea.
I love that, and I think I'm going to apply that to any marital disputes I have in the future, where I'm going to say, I hold by the house of Elon in this dispute. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying the Academy of Elon, I go by them.
It's a little arrogant, but
it's a little arrogant, but it's not me. It's,
right.
It's the school.
Right.
I'm going to use that. All right. Now, I can't even read this question because it's too depressing. But can you just seriously tell the story about, in your book where you talk about two Jews on a train and the Holocaust?
It's actually not
so
depressing.
Upsetting.
It's not depressing.
It's inspiring, but that they had to ever be in that situation.
Right. So
disgusting.
this is a very, very. His name is Yankel, and it's a real true story. He owned a bakery in Crown Heights, and he was a Holocaust survivor. And he was asked how he survived. And he said that he was in a boxcar. And what some people may not even know about these terrible boxcars that the Nazis put our people in is that some of the times the Jews were left for days in the freezing cold. And he was a teenager at the time. And he didn't know anyone. He was separated from his family. And the only person he recognized in the whole boxcar was this elderly gentleman from his own town. It was basically a shtetl in Poland where he was from. And the guy was shivering. It was so cold. So he made his way over to the man. And he just started rubbing, like his shoulders. He just started rubbing. And he's like, "Hang in there. It's going to be okay. We're going to get through this, And he says this went on for hours and hours and hours throughout the night. And he's describing how difficult he was getting sore from having to constantly, and and then at some point he just couldn't do it anymore. He just fell asleep. And he woke up the next morning when he finally saw some light and there was some warmth coming in from the sun into the boxcar. And he woke up to like a deathly silence. And he saw that the only people that were left alive in this boxcar was him and the man. The man because he was warming him, and him because he was warming someone else. Wow. And that is really the secret, one of the great secrets of Torah Judaism. We always think that taking care of another person is this selfless, wonderful thing that I can do, altruism for somebody else. And that's the way that chesed is so often, it's the Hebrew word for kindness, is portrayed in our society, the do-gooders. Chesed is the most fundamental thing for us. Mm-hmm. Chesed is what keeps us alive. Mm-hmm. It's not for the other person. It's at least as much for you. And all the happiness studies, and I put this in the first chapter of my first book that you wrote such a beautiful blurb for, thank you. And I put that in the chapter that all of the studies demonstrate that the people that are happiest in this world are the people that are giving to other people consistently and are getting themselves out of themselves by attaching themselves to something beyond themselves. That's why I call the book Beyond the Instant. It's out there if anybody wants to get it as well. And when we keep other people warm, we make ourselves warm.
So true. By the way, I discovered that myself growing up in the Bronx. My grandfather, Zadie, lived like 5 minutes from me, and I just felt bad. He was all alone. His wife had died a few years ago. So every day I brought him lunch. And I was like, I'm going to do this to be a good guy and for him. And then one day, it was after like, I don't know, 50th day, I was like, this is actually good for me. Like, I'm benefiting more. What does he get out of it? A hot dog. But and by the way, I think I killed him because I fed him hot dogs. But I would bring him whatever, a burger, whatever I bring him.
He enjoyed it at the time.
He enjoyed it at the time, at least. But I remember having my little Oprah aha moment where I just went, I also gave him stuffed cabbage. Thank you, Mom. But my point is, this is why I don't bring them to the shows. Imagine getting heckled by your parents. Anyway, but it really was a moment for me to go, no, this is good for me. This feels so good to bond with my grandfather, to hear his stories. This is good for me. I always thought it was selfless, but it's kind of selfish. But anyway, okay, we have 2 more questions, then we're going to take a couple of questions, and then I'm going to go bomb at the Comedy Cellar. All right. Though this, I like this question, Alan, because I'm curious about the answer. We always hear to give people the benefit of the doubt, but how?
So there's a lot of ways, but I'm just going to give you one. Pull the lens back. What do I mean by pull the lens back? So it says in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Havedanis kol adam lakav zchus, to be dan, which means to judge other people, lakav zchut, meritoriously. As an aside, we're really not supposed to be judgmental at all. And I heard this from one of my teachers, Rav Nevin Solshlita, who said that it's human nature to judge. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't, but you're gonna. And if you're going to, at least do it meritoriously. How? Havedan et kol ha'adam. Why does the ethics of our fathers, the sages, say, judge all man? Now you could say, oh, it's talking about everyone, not just your friend or your relative. Make sure to judge, make sure to give everyone a benefit of the doubt, not just special people in your life. Mm-hmm. Or it means judge the whole person. If we could get into the habit every time we're ticked off by a friend or insulted by a relative or a neighbor of pulling the lens back and actually looking at the total person and not honing in on what that nasty thing that the person just said, mm-hmm. then we can try to give people the benefit of the doubt, and we will be more successful at it. We'll be able to hold on to more friends because we will look at the total person. We will see context. The world is missing nuance. The world is missing context. We have to stop zeroing in on one thing, cancel them, get rid of them. What do you mean? That's the same guy when you were down and out. He was the one who helped you. Don't you remember 2 weeks ago? Yeah, we're not there. I'm right over here. I know, but it's the same guy. Havedan et kol ha'adam. Look at the whole person.
That's great. Final question, and I really do recommend the book. I'm so excited to do it. I read ahead and I stopped myself because I want to do it the way you recommend, which is every day you read a little, and then you, at the end of the day, think about what you read and try to process it and apply it to your life. So I can't wait. So thank you. It is a gift. There's like 200 there.
Everyone gets one tonight.
Yeah! Yeah. Welcome back to Oprah.
Oprah.
You get a book. You get a book. I love it. Final question is, and I mentioned
Does she ever give out books?
No, just cars. Through MJE, I talked about this before. It's incredible. Made 344 marriages. What is your secret? That's what they want to know.
Right. So Alan suggested we tell them about the microchips in the egg salad at the Kiddush, just for the men, and then we can manipulate the little mind control. So I think 2 things. Number one, and I give my staff a lot of credit for this. I give my wife a lot of credit for this. We have a very homey, warm environment. It's family here. What we've tried to create at MG is a place where if you don't show up after a while, you don't just get the guilt call, but you get like, everything okay? We actually noticed that you weren't here. When people feel they're in that kind of environment, they can let their guard down. It's easier to meet. And also the ski retreats, the spring retreats, which we have been able to do over COVID, but please God, we're getting back to it, and trips to Israel, where people get to spend more time with each other, like a few days, mm-hmm. and they're chilling out, and they're skiing, and they're hanging out afterwards at a Shabbat meal.
It's so much better than like the setup or the.
Right.
It's just Right. It's
an
experience. It's a Manhattan Jewish experience. You see how I did that? No, you want to be in an experience like skiing or a trip or whatever. It's so much easier to mingle and talk than a party or.
Right. So that's number one. Number two, though, if you don't want to get married, though, you can be in the most conducive environment for marriage and still not.
That's true.
So I also think it's important that we learn about the value of marriage and relationship building, which has taken a big beating. And I think you're a great role model. I mean, you've been Bli Ayin Hara married for many, many years. Yep. You make a couple of jokes here and there, but you're very positive about it.
I am.
And
I recommend it highly.
And we don't have a lot of people highly recommending marriage anymore. Right. We don't. And we need to do that, and we need to show positive
Yeah.
marriages and
Yep.
why they're great and awesome.
Absolutely. I couldn't imagine a life any other way. And I remember when Seinfeld said that, he was single like forever, until he was 40 or whatever. And he always used to think, I beat the racket by staying single. Look at all these my married friends, they all got married. I beat the racket. Then he got married and had kids and went, oh, I can't believe I thought that way all this time. That's not the racket. You're missing out on everything. So, all right, let's do this. 2 questions for the rabbi, 2 questions for me. Go. Who's got them? Go ahead. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you. I read your book, Rabbi Wildes. It's fantastic book for school counseling.
Thank
I
you.
think there are so many more messages. You're talking about believing, thinking, and action. I think that those who talk should do, and those who do should talk.
Whoa.
I honestly believe that, I think that, don't tell me, show me. There's lots of talking.
Talk is cheap, as they say.
Talk is nonsense.
Right. And by the way, kids know this the most.
My kids
Because,
here.
okay, there you go.
My sister.
Because kids have antennas which perk up every time their parents say one thing and do something else. And it's the biggest turnoff for us when we have a teacher or someone who's saying one thing and doing something. So it's hard. We're human beings. None of us is perfect. But that's why Torah is mitzvah-centered. It's all about what you do.
Absolutely. Kids learn by example. They don't listen what you tell them. They look at what we do. And also about the smile, absolutely.
Yes.
I'm not a psychologist, I'm a mathematician, so I don't know. But when a person smiles, when they put
Even mathematicians, when they smile, it brings...
especially Russian mathematicians, when they smile. Regarding anger,
Yes.
I think I just want to make sure you're not talking about suppressing the anger.
Oh, no.
Emotions and feelings.
Yeah, so this is very important. I left something out about anger, and I got upset myself just that I left this out. So one thing we talked about taking a breather and all that. The other part that I mentioned in here, the Torah explicitly says, "Hocheach tochiach et amitecha." Thou shalt surely rebuke. It's a hard word, but correct one's neighbor. When you see something, you're supposed to try to say something. Meaning, if you are insulted or offended in some kind of way, when I say take a break, don't push the send or text that so quickly, I don't mean never to express your discontent. If you do that, and the great Nachmanides, the Ramban wrote this, that if you cover it up, hate will develop. And in fact, if you look at the verse in the Torah, it says right before, "Ochech tochich, al tisnat achicha bilvavecha." Don't harbor hate for your fellow. Correct your neighbor, v'lo tisalav chet, and don't bear sin. What sin? Nachmanides says it's the sin of hate, because if you don't say something, if you don't correct, if you don't approach, but there's a talent. Chazon Ish said this, one of the great rabbis in Israel in the 1950s. He said that giving tochacha, rebuke, is an art. It's not a science. And if you really want to mend, because it's not healthy to carry it around, you need to share it. And if you sweep it under the rug and you don't say anything, you're going to develop, it's going to fester, and you're going to build a worse situation.
Could you speak to my sister-in-law?
All right.
He's the
Anyone?
second funniest person
That's
here,
funny.
actually. No, but
Anybody else?
it's very important to say something. And really quickly, I will get to a question privately. And I talk in the book about how not to put the other person on the defensive, which is why if you say, and this works in marital therapy too, if you say, when you said that, it made me feel. Mm-hmm. If you say it made me, I know it sounds a little touchy, whatever it is, it works. And why did you do that? You put the other person on the defensive, and then right, you're attacking them. No, when you said that, it made me feel. If you do that, you do it privately, because you're not permitted to embarrass another person just so they did that to you. 2 wrongs don't make a right. But that's one way of actually really dealing with the core issue. The taking a breather is just the symptom. This deals with the core.
I also think that maybe if one examines where the anger comes from, if it's based on facts, if it's based on assumptions, then you can readjust your emotions.
Of course, and that's what having a real conversation is all about. Thank you. Thanks for
Thanks
reading my
for the
other book.
question. Anybody else? Go ahead. Kosher Dill's in the house,
Woo!
everybody. Fantastic Jewish rapper.
Rabbi, could you speak on the mystical significance of the number 40 from like age to the book to everything? You briefly touched on it, but I wanted you to go in because I'm about to turn 40, so just yeah. This week my Hebrew birthday. So
Rabbi Ezra,
so I figure
share the mem.
Not my English birthday. That's later.
Without getting too much into the Kabbalah, just to reiterate what I said before because it's late. But it's all about getting to the next place in life. 40 is the time span. It's the measurement. It's the physical number that we need to count or go through to get ourselves, our souls, to develop them to the next place in life. That's why the Jews were in the wilderness for 40 years. That's why the world flooded 40 days, 40 nights. It's all about the next stage in life. I'm just going to keep it simple because it's late. But we can talk more Kabbalah later.
Anyone else?
We've
Who's here for the first time? You have a question? Oh, okay.
we're now. I already did my 2. We're up to our to Elon.
Anyone have a question for me? And then I have to be on stage in 29 minutes at the Comedy Zone, all the way downtown.
Yeah. Can I take a picture with the man who's reasoning behind as to why I'm now engaged?
Oh, wait a minute. I did something that got you engaged? Mazel tov. Let's do it. Let's take a picture. Is it? Where is she?
She's right here.
You did well. Let's take a picture. But where is she tonight?
She's at home.
All right.
Wait, how?
So I was on his show. I'm the famous Elbowgate guy.
Wow.
I don't know if any of you guys watched the show.
Oh, yeah.
And he told me that the reasoning. Well, and he had every right to.
Well, they need to hear this too.
There was a woman showing elbows, and you got upset with her, and we called it Elbowgate.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
I was like, I'd rather have a girl who's a different hashkafa than me, a different level of religiousness.
Interesting.
And he called me out to my standards or whatever, but all was well. But the girl saw me and she found me.
True story. I'm so happy, by the way.
3:45.
Because I set up. Wow, 3:45.
That's yours.
Wait, you're
That's
taking
yours.
credit
No,
for
I'm not
that?
taking. I'm just saying it's yours.
Let's take a picture.
We got a fundraise. I mean,
Thank you.
Mazel tov.
So happy for you.
Oh my God.
One more, because I really have to be on stage in 25 minutes. Downtown.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious, what particular Jewish prayer do you use to clear your throat before you start speaking? Because Hebrew's so great for keeping
Yeah, there is no prayer for phlegm. You just have to drink a lot of liquids. Got to hydrate a lot. But I do daven, by the way, every morning. I put on tefillin, even Shabbos. I love you. I can't wait to finish this book, and I appreciate you. Guys,
Real hug. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
It's him, not me.
Let's give it up for Elon Gold,
Thank
everyone.
you, everybody.
Please. Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Read this book. Read this book. Thank you.